Hi, everybody. So today I want to talk about infidelity and boundaries. What boundaries are needed post discovery of the infidelity? In other words, what boundaries are needed so that healing can happen and that also, as we go through the stages of healing, that our relationship can thrive? Now, infidelity is a violation of boundaries. Boundaries, hey, what's the boundary? Like the boundary of a country, this is where boundaries where this is where our country ends and maybe another one begins. There's a boundary, there's a line around it, right? With couples and families, there's boundaries. So with a couple, then there ideally is a boundary around the couple so that they're, let's say with kids, they're a united front. People talk about a united front with their kids. You want to have a boundary. And with kids, like if you don't have a united front, kids could try to divide and conquer, and the healthy hierarchy of parents kids can get all torn up and kids can run the household. So that's an example of challenges with boundaries within a family where we don't honor the boundary. There are boundaries around all relationships, right? There's boundaries between a mom and an adult child. There's a certain boundary where they honor each other. But an intimate couple definitely needs that boundary. And when you have a mother or a mother-in-law come in, let's say, or father or father-in-law, and they want things their way, a lot of times it's important for the both partners to have a boundary and make sure that they support each other as couple and don't please their parents in a way that then erodes at the boundary of the couple. So there's just different ways that boundaries are necessary. So you have a couple that's intimate, a committed relationship, there's a boundary around there where you, there's certain things you don't do, right? Being single, I could have dated or flirted with all kinds of people. Once I'm in a committed relationship, the assumption there is that I don't flirt with other people. So that's a boundary. It's a boundary to keep the sacredness of that couple, this couple inside of it and around it is these boundaries where I keep doing that. If I have a secret, it's a boundary violation. I have violated the boundary. I have ruptured our boundary so that I could have some kind of boundary with this other person. Now, obviously, if the person's cheating with an escort, it's different than a woman or a man that the person's with for 6 months to a year and develops a deeper relationship. But in either case, even though maybe one is a more intense relationship than the other, there's a violation of the boundary between the committed couple in either way. That's what secrets do. They rupture the boundary. So we have to, if we're going to heal, if this couple is going to heal, they have to have a very solid boundary around them. And if you have a partnership where they're like in my case, I have not cheated on my wife. I'm certainly not a perfect husband, but I haven't cheated on my wife. And so when it comes to other female therapists that I've gone to lunch with, and it's not a big deal. I have lunch with them. There's probably more women than men that are in my field. So I've had luncheons with therapists, and most of the time it's women. Sometimes it's me and one other woman. It's not a big deal because I haven't violated that boundary. So I don't need it to be rigid, and I can, as long I'm acting appropriate with this other person, and I'm presenting myself as a married person, and there's really not an issue. So there are boundaries. I can't. I this I've said this many times, but obviously, when I was out there, I can't do anything that I couldn't tell my wife about. For example, I could say, I met so, and it was so nice to see you. And I gave her a big hug and it was very warm. We had a very nice lunch. So I could tell her that. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's when we do things that we can't tell a partner that becomes the secret, small secrets, which sometimes lead to big secrets. That's a boundary violation. So now a person, let's say, has violated that. They're going to have a very different situation than in my situation. Okay, because they have given their partner reason to feel unsafe. And so now the betrayer has to go a little bit more out of their way to make the other person feel safe that you are honoring the boundary. So there's different ways we do that. And I've worked in therapy with some of these couples, and the people need to do that, whether in therapy or not. They have to use some of the things I'm about to mention. For one, if it's an intimate relationship with the fair partner, that has to end, and it has to end in the presence of the committed partner. So the committed partner is there, and everything's overt, nothing's secret, and the betrayed person gets to witness their partner who betrayed ending the relationship on no uncertain terms. That's one way to maintain a boundary, to, or at least I shouldn't say maintain, but to begin the healing of that ruptured boundary. Sometimes, again, in the situation, let's say the person that they cheated with was a coworker. To reinstall that boundary, you might have to change. I had one, there's a couple that were both teachers and in different schools. I think it was the same district with different schools. And this man who had cheated was a highly respected and popular teacher for 25 years in this school, but he changed schools so that he wouldn't see this person every day. And he said, look, I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to cheat on my partner if I don't change schools. I really would rather not change schools. But the partner was like, I'm not comfortable with it. And he understood. And even though I do think that he probably would have honored that, one way to honor the boundary and make it clear is to do the difficult task of leaving the familiar. And he had to teach at a different school where nobody knew him. He didn't have that cloud in the new school. But that's the price one pays oftentimes, because it's not always going to be comfortable or convenient to do what you got to do to I make up this word, re-sacredize, or make it sacred again, the boundary that you have with your partner. So sometimes those things are needed to create a healthy boundary. Sometimes it might not be possible to, in a coworker situation, or to leave a job and the other person can't leave the job. So I've had one person, when they had to go to meetings where the other person was there, they have to just go out of the way. They FaceTime their partner before, take a break in the middle, and then even at the end, they say, I just know you're concerned and you're anxious, but I love you. I'm thinking of you. And they do the extra legwork of before and in the middle, taking a little break, and in the end, after, to FaceTime their partner. Again, we're trying to maintain the boundary. Okay, so that's very important. Social media, sometimes we have to, even if even there's definitely situations where I've had people just get off social media entirely, or make a commitment to not react to anybody that's on social media, that if their partner would see it, they'd be anxious or jealous or whatever. So they might have to change those behaviors. Don't like those people, especially people that your partner would feel threatened about. What I ask is a betrayed person a lot of times is to be reasonable, to not look at everything as a threat, to discern what is really a threat, what isn't a threat. Because even though I do think it's important for the person who betrayed to go above and beyond to make the other person feel safe, you certainly don't want them to walk around like this in a straitjacket. They need to live and work and socialize too. So where the person who was betrayed, because it's not really a threat, that's the area where you let things be. Okay, what else? Boundaries. I would say that sharing passwords, a lot of times people that betray say, don't I have a right to privacy? And I go, not really. Not now. Maybe eventually when your partner is settled. But until your partner's nervous system calms down, no, 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 your partner should have total access to your sometimes checking accounts if they paid. Again, it depends what they did. If they paid money and spent money, a decent amount of money on other women, or a woman, or a man, or other men, or whatever the case may be, that your partner should have access to your money to see what's going on. Definitely the devices, the phone, the computer, the iPad, whatever. You may have to get off social media, like I said, or maybe that your partner has access to or everything and that you would be doing. You might feel like that is sacrificing some individual boundary, but for a while you got to do that to create a healthy boundary as a couple. And then you would look at even flirting. Again, any behavior that you know you would rather your wife or husband or committed boyfriend or girlfriend not know about, then don't do it. You just can't do it because you are committed to create that healthy, sacred boundary between you and your committed partner. That is what's more important than following any urge to have pleasure or to have some ego gratification or whatever. That is just way down the priority list compared to doing what you got to do to help to create that boundary, which again, remember, it's all about your partner who was betrayed by you to feel safe. That's what this is all about. So that's what I wanted to say about boundaries and infidelity. You got to be willing to go the extra mile if a person has betrayed and to make sure that the person's safe. It's not about being micromanaged or controlled. It's about helping that person who was betrayed to feel safe. We want to keep that in mind. And of course, the only thing I ask of the betrayed person is to discern, is this really a threat or not? And to be reasonable. But other than that, I think the onus of creating that safe boundary is on the person that betrayed. Thanks for listening. This is Todd Creager, making the world safe for love.